Yo.
Welcome back, and I am very excited about today's video. I have recently had the privilege of being able to visit Italy for the first time ever, and I absolutely fell in love. Obviously, I had some pasta with meat sauce and made what I usually make at home shamefully fail in comparison. I just had to try and replicate the result at home. So today we will be looking at improving your bolognese or ragu sauce using a few simple steps. Now, please don't get me wrong. I am in absolutely no way saying that I have perfected the sauce, but there are a few things that you can do to already increase the flavor and the chance of success for this dish. Also, the lessons I have learned in pursuing the sauce have proven absolutely invaluable to my cooking, and the attempts at this sauce I have made so far obliterated any other bolognese I've previously tried to make. Side note, I tried to see if there's a difference between ragu and bolognese. Some say there is, some say there's not. Some say bolognese is a type of ragu, and I know for some it's a very heated topic. So let me know in the comment section what you think the difference between ragu and bolognese is. So the lessons I have learned, which then translates into the step, are creating a flavor base upon which to build the rest of your dish, and cooking with time. Not the herb. So let's jump right into it. Lesson one is creating a flavor base. So firstly, onions need to cook for quite some time before adding the rest of your food. I only recently found out that onions are not really supposed to be sauteed on quite a high heat as quick as possible before adding the rest of your food. And to think I was always so chuffed with the way those golden brown suckers turned out. I had no idea the flavor that I was missing out on. Now add to your onions a simple carrot and a few celery sticks, and you literally have yourself a flavor party. The ingredients added to bases like these are called aromatics. Aromatics are vegetables that when cooking release a great aroma and adds invaluable depth and flavor to dishes such as roasts, pastas, broths, soups, seafoods, etc. without having to add fats or sugars. Who knew? However, we are focusing on Italian cuisine where the aromatics used are basically onions, carrots and celeries, which is referred to as a sofrito. Some even go as far as to say that even if the rest of your dish is executed perfectly, if your sofrito is wrong, the rest of your dish will simply fall short. So previously I have added onion to a dish purely because the recipe said so. I had no idea that this step basically sets the tone for the rest of your dish, and taking the time to perfect this could be the difference between a good and a really great dish. One mistake I have also always made was by adding the garlic with the onion and not really caring if the garlic turned a darkish golden brown. However, we don't want that because then the flavor becomes too pungent and too harsh. So obviously onion and garlic are different sizes and therefore take different times to finish cooking. Therefore, we would need to saute the onions first and then later add the garlic so that they finish cooking at the same time. You need to play around with the heat in order to achieve this, but I have found that medium to low heat works well. We are going for a pale golden color on the garlic, and we want our onions to be translucent. Of course, other dishes might require caramelized onions, etc., but translucence is a really good start. I was just talking about garlic now as an example. We will not be using garlic for this dish. So if like me, you have always wondered why onions are sauteed before making the rest of your dish, well, there you have it. It is a way to add a deep and rounded flavor to your dish. Also, this ties in perfectly to another concept that I have come across in Italian cooking, where essentially all dishes are cooked from the bottom up, meaning flavor is built from the bottom up. This does not just apply to Italian cooking though. Using aromatics as flavor bases are applied to so many recipes, and just changing a few of the aromatics can transport you to a completely different continent. Step or lesson 2, time. For some reason, I was under the illusion that bolognese or meat sauce is just something that you can make in a couple of minutes. However, it always ended up in a disaster for me. In trying to make the sauce as tasty as possible, I have realized the invaluable effect that time has on dishes like this. Now, I know some people might not have 3 hours to make a meat sauce, but with most people working from home these days, you can just let the sauce simmer away while you pretend to be online on Teams. Or of course, you can just make the meal over the weekend and impress your friends and family with the great dish you're producing. To make an awesome ragu with a deep and perfectly rounded flavor, you need time, and lots of it. Some people suggest 3 hours at least, whilst others say to cook the sauce for the whole day if you can. This allows all of the ingredients to come together and for the ragu to turn into something whole. Should you not give it time, you will basically end up with a flat ground beef tomato soup. So without any further ado, let's jump right into it. For the ingredients, I will be using the following: 400 to 500 gram ground beef. Try getting a fattier cut, as this will provide a sweeter ragu, and the rendered fat remaining after browning the beef can be used to cook your sofrito with. 1 large onion. I couldn't get a big enough one, so I just got 3 smaller ones. 1 large carrot. 1 or 2 celery stalks depending on the size. 3/4 of a cup of red wine. 1 cup of chicken or beef stock. I have read basically everywhere that homemade stock always works better, but I don't have the equipment in this kitchen to make chicken or beef stock or any stock. But I will soon try to make my first batch, and of course I will take you through the process with me. 1 cup of whole milk. Yep, that is right. Milk. Have you ever imagined cooking meat in milk before? It was a weird concept for me as well, but trust me, it works. It adds a richness to the dish and it adds a certain creaminess. Milk then also neutralizes some of the acidity from the tomatoes and the wine. So all in all, it just really works well together. 1 tinned can of Italian tomatoes and 1 or 2 bay leaves. We will start by cutting up our aromatics for the sofrito. I'm cutting them up by hand, but you can use a food processor if you want to. Just try to make sure that they are all the same size so that they can cook evenly. Then I will brown the ground beef using olive oil and high heat. Usually you would want to use a heavy bottom pot that retains heat well, or an enameled cast iron pot. But if, like me, you don't currently own such a pot, I'm using a normal pot and it also works just fine. When I'm happy with the ground beef, I will remove it using a slotted spoon, leaving behind the rendered fat, and then use the same pot and the rendered fat of the ground beef to cook my sofrito in. If the rendered fat from the browning of your ground beef is not sufficient to cook your sofrito in, feel free to add more oil. Cook your sofrito over a medium-low heat, making sure that your sofrito does not burn, and cook it until the onions are translucent in order to ensure that maximum flavor is extracted from your aromatics. Once I'm satisfied with my sofrito, I will add the ground beef back to the pot, turn the heat to high, and then add the red wine to deglaze the pot. Now, the term deglazing was new to me, and it's basically when you add fluids to a hot pan or pot in order to release bits of caramelized goods from the bottom of said pot. These little bits are then released into the sauce that you are making and form such a vital part of your sauce, as they add so much flavor. In fact, I used to clean my pan after browning meat, ridding myself of all that flavor before continuing with the rest of my sauce. And the first time I applied deglazing, the taste of my food just instantly leveled up. The flavor of your meals are just so much more complete because you are building flavors based on the ingredients that you are already using in your meal, instead of having to resort to introducing new ingredients to your dish in order to enhance your current flavor shortfall, which could possibly tip the balance of your meal. Now, as I said earlier, deglazing for me has been invaluable, and I regularly use it when I try to improvise, especially in making pasta sauces or any kind of sauce, and I would then just use deglazing to kind of have that as the base of the flavor for the sauce that I am trying to build. Then once the wine has cooked down, we add the stock, milk, tomatoes, salt, ground pepper, and bay leaves. We will then bring the pot to one last boil and then put the heat down to the gentlest of simmers and let this bad boy do its thing. Every now and then I would just check in and stir. If the fluids are gone completely, add about half a cup of water and continue cooking. Also skim off any excess fat from the surface should it arise in your cooking process. Now, once your sauce begins to come together and it looks a bit more than edible, you can start performing some flavor tests. Taste your food and add whatever you feel is needed. An example, more salt, wine, etc. And of course, the last step to the process is preparing our pasta. For the pasta, we will be using tagliatelle and not spaghetti. I don't even think spaghetti bolognese even exists in Italy, to be honest, and I have read that the mayor of Bologna actually called the dish fake news. But after having used tagliatelle, I will never really use spaghetti again, as the tagliatelle, being thicker, really holds the sauce well. Once the pasta is done and your ragu has done its time, it's time to grate some fresh parmesan, pour a glass of wine, and just have a good time. That's it for this video, guys, and thanks for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you have enjoyed this video, and I will see you here next time.